has been fully briefed. Trudeau did not say whether this new information changes the way Canada sees its deal to sell armored vehicles to Saudi. They should do next about Saudi Arabia. Tom Parry, CBC News, Paris.
As Canadians learn more details surrounding the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, some are saying there are now more reasons for Canada to end its agreement to sell $15 billion worth of military vehicles to Saudi Arabia. And one of those is former politician and University of Montreal law professor Daniel Turp. He filed a lawsuit against Ottawa to have the deal annulled long before Khashoggi was murdered. He joins me now from Montreal. Thank you very much, Daniel, for being with us. When you heard today that Canada, the Canadian authorities, officials had had a chance to hear the audio tapes, what was your reaction?
Well, I would have liked to know what was on those tapes, and obviously a lot of people want to keep that for themselves. But at the end, what we know, or what apparently has happened, is that Mr. Khashoggi was murdered, and his right to life was breached, and once again you have more evidence that Saudi Arabia is not concerned with human rights, with freedom of expression, obviously, but with the right of life of one of its own citizens. So, you know, proofs are accumulating that Saudi Arabia is really a country to whom you should not sell military equipment, because there is a real risk that it will be used to breach human rights.
Of course, and you point out we don't know what's on that audio recording. We don't know if there's any evidence on it that directly implicates the Saudi prince for incident, or whether it is more just a, I hate this phrasing, but the audio recording of a gruesome murder that they have just listened to. How do you think, how do you think an audio recording like this might play into your lawsuit?
Well, as I said, you know, the issue in our case in front of the Supreme Court now, because we're now before the Supreme Court, we're trying to convince judges of the Supreme Court to hear our case, and the case is all about the risk that some military equipment be used to breach human rights. And, you know, we've put some evidence before the lower courts that there has been some evidence. And then the general record of Saudi Arabia when it comes to human rights talks by itself. You know, it's so evident that there's no concern for human rights when it comes to Saudi Arabia. And this, what happened to Mr. Khashoggi, will add to it. And today we hear what happened in Yemen, and hospitals have been bombed, and patients had to leave the hospital, and doctors. And so what more does the Canadian government need to suspend or even cancel, because that should be the case, the contracts? You have so much evidence that Saudi Arabia has no concern with human rights that there obviously should be a conclusion that there's a risk that these Canadian-made armed vehicles would be used to breach human rights in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, or who knows, elsewhere in the world.
Well, certainly we've heard Justin Trudeau talk about the fact that measures could certainly be necessary. I think the word measures is what has been used. He's talked about the idea of canceling the contract, and the fact that it would cost Canadians $1 billion to do so, to cancel that LAV deal. But when he talks about measures, are you concerned that the Canadian government might implement some measures against Saudi Arabia, but that those measures might not be canceling the LAV deal given the costs?
Yes, I am concerned, because that contract should be canceled. Those export permits should be canceled, and there should be no exports of armed vehicles to Saudi Arabia because of the risk that represents. And obviously, and I'm a bit worried that Justin Trudeau and his government are just trying to gain time, because it's on October 24th that Justin Trudeau suggested that he might cancel the deal or suspend the export permits, but that hasn't happened. That's almost 3 weeks ago. We haven't heard anything about that suspension and cancellation. In the meantime, Germany has suspended its exports to Saudi Arabia. Switzerland has also taken measures to prevent the exports of military equipment made in Switzerland to the Saudi Arabia. So why wait? Why not just do the thing that should have been done at the very beginning in any case? Suspend the permits or cancel them, or even with more courage, cancel the contract and find another buyer for these armed vehicles, because Saudi Arabia could use them to breach the human rights of people in its own country, in Yemen, and as I said, maybe elsewhere in the world, who knows?
Right, no, you're right. It has been about 2 weeks since he talked about measures being put in place should there be a link to the Saudi government. But at the same time, he is the first Western leader to confirm having had officials be able to listen to that tape. I mean, other countries have, Turkey has said that they provided it to other countries, and they've provided sort of mixed messages as to whether or not they've been in receipt of that audio tape. So Justin Trudeau did come out acknowledging an important step, as seen by many, that the tape does